Mino Line Media presents the Business First Podcast.
Hi, all, and welcome to a new episode of Business First with Sonia Aline. I am your host, and today we have Nicole Smith in the studio, and Nicole is the founder of Smitten, which is an executive, well, it's not just an executive coaching, it's a life coaching business. So welcome, Nicole. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm excited to be here with you. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Same here, same here. We were introduced through a mutual friend and we had a great conversation beforehand. And so I'm looking forward to you sharing your insight with the audience. And, you know, for you, you may not know, but we've had several coaches on before. And just so for the audience who has, you know, if they've been following along, they've noticed that we've had coaches on. But I feel like it's really important because it's not something that particularly persons of color think about when they think about advancing their work, advancing their business, or advancing their life. And so one of your quotes on Instagram said, "A good life starts with being good to yourself." Which really resonated with me because I think that we think about that in our personal life, but we don't think about like how that translates into our work life, our professional life, or our entrepreneurial journey. And so I'd like you to start off by talking a little bit about the importance of why you, and you know what, I actually do want to say too, the other reason that I talk about coaching a lot is because I would have benefited from it so much in my career journey. And even as I was starting, I mean, I benefited because of my background and some of the folks I was fortunate enough to work with when I transitioned out of my career and started this entrepreneurial journey. But I suffered a lot in my career because of things that I just didn't know, right? And if I had had a mentor, if I had had a coach, things could have been a lot different. And so I want you to talk about the importance of coaching and the act of coaching as being good for yourself.
Okay, well, I'm nodding. I'm like almost getting dizzy over here. I'm nodding so much with you because, and I'm sure everybody listening is nodding along too. The fact is I'm just like you in my career. And I like to say that I built my career from admin to CMO because I did, or actually interned to CMO, right? And a lot of ladder climbing. And not a lot of people climbing along with me. Not a lot of people on those lower rungs pushing me up, right? There was a lot of me pulling myself up. And coaching is sometimes pushing from the bottom, but a lot of times a hand down from the top, making it much easier to climb. And just, I always think about, and that is exactly why I became a coach, was because I wanted to be what I didn't have, what I know so many of us need. And yes, it's that person that's going to tell you the things that no one else is going to tell you. You know, it's kind of like the spinach in your teeth, but from a career or life perspective, like somebody needs to, you want somebody to point that out to you, right? But you want them to do it in a loving, compassionate way that is helpful, right? And so wanting to be that for people in their careers, knowing how much it would have benefited me, and knowing that, especially women and especially people of color, how much we need a compassionate listening ear. Not necessarily someone to give you advice, not necessarily someone to tell you what to do, because there's plenty of people telling us what to do. Everybody's telling us how to change, how to fit in, how to do, there's a whole list. But I don't think there are enough people, or at least I still don't, but I definitely didn't before. I don't think that there are enough people who are telling you, you know what, you're okay. You're doing a good job. Yeah, we could do a little better. And being compassionate, walking alongside you, while you trust yourself and become more of yourself in the process. It almost feels like the higher you go, the more of yourself you leave behind. And my entire process and mission is like, no, you're coming with it. Because if you leave yourself behind, the journey's useless. And so how can we continue to do that? And how can I be that for someone? So I totally lost the question because I got all in my feelings because that is because that is the core of why I do this work. Because we do need it. We do need it. I mean, you can read as many leadership books as you want. There's no shortage of that. You can have frameworks from here to whenever. But unless you figure out your unique way of putting all that together, how you want to bring that to life, you're never going to achieve everything that you want to. And even worse yet, you might achieve, but you won't feel good about it. What I say about my clients is that they are good at what they do, but they don't necessarily feel good about it, right? There's something that's missing. Maybe they don't feel good about it because they don't feel like they're being themselves. Maybe they don't feel good about it because their why has changed and maybe I don't even really want to do this anymore. Maybe they don't feel good about it because of the environment they're in. We get to, you can do well and feel good. And so many of us have been told, no, no, just bear it, feel horrible. That's a part of the journey. Let it suck, right? And you'll feel better when you retire.
Yeah. Yes, if you make it.
If you make it. And I'm not signing up for that. And I don't want us to sign up for that either. I don't want anybody else to sign up for that anymore. I want you to enjoy the destination, but I feel like you could enjoy the journey just as much, if not more.
So you said a few things that I want us to go back on. Number one, compassion is the operative word. Like when you said that, that got me in my feelings because, like you said, a lot of it is, just get it done. Like, just go out there and get the work done. And even as you're doing it, even if you make mistakes or even if the things you haven't done, the compassion is what makes you able to unpack it all, look at it, and be able to find a way forward instead of beating yourself up, right? Or sitting in all of the remorse of what you hadn't done. But one thing you said that struck me is people who have changed their why, and we don't talk about that enough, right? So like, and on the show we've talked about people who've like switched directions, but funny enough, I had a conversation with a friend of mine last night who has a wonderful business. And she was just like, you know what? I think I'm going to like just give it up. And I was just like, why? Like, why would you do that? Like, you can't give that up. And she was just like, I don't feel bad about it. And I think, in a way I was just like, well, why don't you feel bad about it? Like, this is something that you've talked about that you've felt inspired by. And so it's interesting that you bring that up because I had this conversation just last night. And so how do we give ourselves permission to change our why?
Ooh, you're asking all the good questions here today. And I remembered something else. So I'm going to roll back for a second and then we're going to hit on that permission part. Okay. Because the quote you brought up about being good to yourself. So Brene Brown says, how you live is how you lead. And I think we lead in our professional life and our personal life. So you have to look at how you're living. Are you living well? Are you treating yourself well? Because that's how you're going to do everything else. So if you're not being kind to yourself, you're being abusive to yourself, you are forcing yourself, you're coming from a place of scarcity, that is going to show up everywhere else. And so when you have compassion for yourself, when you say, and this is the word that if anybody walks away from this conversation, just remember this thing. If you leave room for your humanity, leave room to be a human, leave room to make mistakes, to learn, to evolve, to grow. And that's where you'll get your permission.
What that means. Okay.
Yeah, that's where you're going to get your permission from because you're a human. You get to change your mind. You have a human brain.
Change your mind.
Yeah. And that is like the intersection of compassion and humanity, right? I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to get new information and feel different things. And we'll have to talk about feelings because that's a really important piece of this too. Mm-hmm. But giving yourself that permission to feel differently. That's part of being human. You want the whole range of feelings. So yes, maybe your friend was inspired last week, last year, 10 years ago. And maybe she just wants to be inspired by something new. And as a human, she has that ability and that capacity. So that's where the permission comes from. It comes from just knowing that you're a human. You get to decide how you want to live this experience called life. And you have your own permission to do what you want to do.
Yeah, to own that is I guess the challenge of it. Because I feel like I was hard on her last night. Like how could you, right? Like how could you? Like because I think even spiritually I believe that ideas are born into us for a reason, right? And maybe the reason is already materialized and what it is, but and I'm a close friend. So even as a friend, I think we can impose these ideas that are unfair and burdensome?
Well, yeah, sometimes they can be unfair and burdensome. My first instinct is like, well, don't be so hard on yourself,
Right.
you know.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
But
Thanks for the reminder.
you're welcome.
Yes.
Don't be so hard on yourself. But that comes from a really good place, right? Because we
Yeah.
want our friends to do well. We want them to be healthy. We want them to be happy. And if you saw her in a space where she was good, healthy, and happy, why wouldn't you want her to be there, right? But I think there's more than one thing that we can be good at. There's more than one thing we could be happy about, and there's multiple ways for us to be healthy. So just having that idea of like, we're all going to have really great ideas, but we're probably going to have more than one, and there's more than one that's going to work for us. So she's just on to the new one. And who knows, she may circle back. Like she may come back to this original idea at some point.
And that's the whole purpose of just being allowed to experience the full range of whatever we are experiencing, and allowing and
Exactly.
being okay with that.
Being okay with that and being open. And I wouldn't, and this isn't your coaching session, but you know,
I'm here for it though.
that's probably what you would have thought. Like, oh, this is the thing I do. I'm very connected to it.
Right.
It's my thing. And so your brain naturally thinks that that's that thing for her too. And that again is natural. But what she's saying is, I think there might be another thing for me.
Tell us a little bit about your journey. You have a very interesting background. You were in sports and in entertainment, and most people would say, like, why would you ever want to walk away from any of that? Like, those are two of the sexiest jobs in industry. So tell us a little bit about your background and well, and we can get into like what was that moment, or what were the things that kind of culminated in you deciding that leave all of this behind?
So yes, my career's been fun. I'm telling you, nobody owes me anything as far as that's concerned. Right out of college, I started working in the entertainment industry. Well, actually, before I even graduated from college, I was interning in the entertainment industry. So fun. I enjoyed it. Right away, it felt like the place where I was supposed to be. And right out of school, I worked in the music industry. I worked in television. I'm going to date myself, but I know the people listening to this know what I'm talking about. So I worked at Priority Records. I was there for like the Up in Smoke tour, like Dr. Dre, like all this stuff. And then, that was really like a thing. I'm working on like Snoop Dogg and Master P type projects. And then I went to Disney, where,
Wow.
yeah, where I was working on, you know, reading products and Lizzie McGuire and Disney Channel stars and that type of thing. And then I moved my way through the industry, different music labels, different television networks. I worked at Fox Broadcasting, had a great time working on American Idol. Fantasia Barrino and Jennifer Hudson will always be close to my heart. I worked on their season. And then I moved into more traditional marketing roles back at the Walt Disney Company. Always welcome back there. And after a while, I saw people moving and careers moving, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And an MBA sounded amazing, especially because at that time, a lot of doors were closed to me. And the reason given was, well, these people have MBAs and you don't. And I was like, I'm not one to just let a door be closed. I'm going to say, okay, well, if that's what I need, I'm going to leave, I'm going to get it, and I'll be back. And so I left and I went to get my MBA at the University of Michigan. And when I went into that process, there's a lot of pressure when you're at like, a top MBA program, all these really smart people, there's all this expectation. And I was like, I'm going to do brand management. So like, let's keep in mind where I came from, right? I came from this fun kind of non-traditional background, but I decided that I needed to confine and conform in that moment. And I was going to do brand management because that was the sensible thing. That's what everyone was doing, very respectable path. And I quickly realized that that wasn't me. It was not a fit. I was like, if I did this job every day, I'd be bored. I would not enjoy this. And I took a moment and I said, listen, you've moved yourself from California. I had never left California, born and raised. I moved north and south because I was born in the Bay Area and I was living in Southern California. But I had never left. And I made this decision to make this big move to Michigan to invest in this education. And I said, if you could do anything, what would you do? If there were no rules, if there were no consequences, what would you do? And I was like, well, you've always wanted to work in sports. Now, I think this might have been one of the times where I actually remember coaching myself. And I said, well, I've always wanted to work in sports. I think that'd be really cool. I would love that. And so I said, okay, so why don't we do that? And that's what we did. We decided that, you know what? No, forget this brand management, forget CPG, forget consulting. Not going to lie, I dabbled a little bit because it felt a little safer. But I went full bore on the sports track and looked for opportunities, was incredibly fortunate. Well, fortune met my tenacity and my perseverance. I was able to get an internship while I was in school, connect with alumni, connect with people who were in roles. And when I graduated, I went to be the director of marketing at the San Diego Padres. So, box checked. And then that was an experience. And when that experience ended, I moved on and landed at NASCAR. And that was an experience. Yeah. And then I got the opportunity to come here to Texas, where I am now, and work on at the time, it was the new WNBA team in Dallas. And so to launch that in what is now known as the biggest sports city in America, to launch a new brand was a fun and exciting prospect. And so I came and I did that. And I recall somebody asking me, it was my first week at work, and they were like, "So what do you do?" And I was kind of trying to explain it. I'm the chief marketing officer. This is what I do. And I was like, well, just to put it bluntly, I'm the most senior executive in the building right now. So if something goes wrong, it's going to be on me. And they said, "Oh, so then what's next?" And my first thought was like, well, this is kind of the first week of this job, so I'm not really thinking about it.
And it was the first week.
Yeah, the first week. Like, why would I be thinking about that? And then the next thing that I thought about was like, well, that's a really good question, because I don't know. I had achieved exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in marketing. I wanted to do marketing specifically in the sports industry. I was now a chief marketing officer. I had launched a new brand. I had worked at basketball teams, motorsports. I had seen what I wanted to see, and there was nothing that was calling me as to what's next. And that sat with me. So I was in that role for about 18 months before I walked away. And that sat with me even then. Like, I don't know what's next. I don't want my boss's job. I'm looking at these other roles that are out there. I'm not excited. So what would excite me? I had to go back to that conversation I had way back in Michigan, in my apartment at Michigan, which was, so if there were no rules and nothing was stopping you and no consequences, what would you do? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And that's when I decided that I wasn't going back to that I was going to move forward, and it was okay to move forward into an unknown.
That, people say that a lot. We've heard, you'll see it in movies, or you'll hear it in coaching examples. Like, if there were no rules or no boundaries, or you didn't have to worry about your paycheck, what would you do next? And that's not a necessarily easy question for people to answer, is it?
No, it's not an easy question.
What is it that stops people from being able to tap? Because it's an important question, right? Because I would imagine that question gets to the heart of who you are and how you want to show up in the world. Is that correct?
Correct. It does. And it is a difficult question. Easier said than done, like the definition of it. And what gets in the way are what we think the rules are. Each of us has a unwritten rule book that we're working through, what we're supposed to prioritize, what we're supposed to do. What will other people think? Will I let people down? Will I've invested this much? People forget about the concept of sunk costs. The money's already spent. It's not coming back. It's okay. I think there are a lot of people who they just don't believe that they can have it, and they don't want to be disappointed. Somebody like me can't do that. Why would somebody, why? Or they don't trust themselves, right? They haven't been tested enough to believe that, what, I may not know how this is going to work, but it's going to work. And that's a skill. That's not a personality trait. We kind of talk about people who have that kind of like self-trust and the ability to like fight through tough things. And we think of it as a personality trait, and it's really a skill. You can develop it.
That's an interesting distinction, that it is a skill.
Mm-hmm.
Because we hear that a lot too, right? That's just how so-and-so is. They're going to persevere. They're always going to fight. They're always going. And I guess for some people it is that kind of innate thing. But how do you, or maybe I should say, how difficult is it for someone to develop that skill? Because it's an enviable skill. Like, you'll hear people say, "Oh, I wish I was more like so-and-so. I wish I had the discipline or the tenacity or the drive to do these things." And so what is the process for helping someone to develop that skill?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think anyone can develop it. And I think your ability to do that is directly proportionate to your desire to actually really want to have that skill. So, for example, I have a really good friend. I love her to pieces. And she says to me all the time, girl, I can never do what you do. I like order. I like safety. I like all these things. And you're a risk taker and I am not. And that's awesome. Everybody doesn't have to be a, swing from the chandelier kind of risk taker. We need all types. So if you feel most grounded, most settled, and most like yourself, which is probably very calm, you can have compassion for that person, you're very centered. If you can have that and say, but I don't take risks, then you're in the right place. But if you're not taking risks and you keep saying, gosh, I really want to do that. Oh, I feel like I'm settling. If I could just get the courage to do X or Y, then that's telling me that you want to push it a little further. So you develop it by experimenting. We learn by doing. You got to take action. And you don't have to take the biggest action right away. You don't have to jump off the highest cliff. You can start by just walking up a hill. Yeah, you just have to figure out what your hill is.
What the hill is. But what you said, the piece of what you said that's very important is, and I guess is that when we can start talking about feelings, it's about where you are in the journey, right? So if I know that I'm not a risk taker and I'm comfortable with that, then it's all good. But if I want it, right? If I want what I see you doing, or if I have this unrest that is in my soul that can't leave me, is that what differentiates the two?
I believe so. Yes. And it's a question that only you can answer, right? Somebody can't answer it for you. That's where you'll get into the most trouble, is thinking that everybody else knows better than you do about yourself. That's where you're going to get into the most trouble. You just may not have been taught how to tap in or know where to know how to listen or be able to discern the voices of your own voice versus voices that may have been growing inside of you that came from outside. You may not know the difference between those, but you know what you want. If you can get still enough, sit still enough, or if something keeps coming up over and over for you, you might want to explore that. Here's the thing that I think most people don't realize or maybe even admit to themselves. You can try something and not like it, and then you don't have to do it anymore. Just try it, don't like it, never have to do it again. Yeah. So maybe, you do see somebody who is doing something, you're like, man.
Can you do that professionally? So people might say like, all right, yes, I'll try fishing. I don't like it. I won't ever go back and do fishing again. But can I do that with my business? Can I do that professionally?
Yes. So I'll split the two. I'll talk about from a corporate lens and an entrepreneurial lens, right? Okay. From a corporate lens, absolutely. You're not going to be any less employable than you are today. So you went out, you got a new experience and a new skill. Oh gosh, we should never hire a person that has a new experience or skill. Why on earth would we do that? Now, it's true that you may have to craft a story, because that's what it all comes down to. It comes down to the story that you're telling. That's what resumes are. That's what LinkedIn profiles are. They're all about the story you tell. Right. Now, you may want to prepare your path a little bit. If you're like, okay, I really want to do this, not sure if it's going to work out. So you get your network in place, you keep people in the loop, you do the things you need to do, or maybe you side hustle it, right? There's so many ways. It's not one or the other. There's a whole spectrum in there. And we get really caught up and we can be very limiting when we think of things as like in or out. That spectrum is broad. There's a lot that can happen in there. And I think that's the beauty of coaching as well, as being able to explore that spectrum. Now, on the entrepreneurial side of things, you have to try things. Like you have to experiment. This idea that there's some magical person who knows how to run a business and is going to give you the blueprint and it's going to all go perfectly is the biggest lie ever told. I can think of a couple that might be on par, but that's one of the big ones. You have to experiment. You have to try new things, especially right now. I mean, depending on what your business is and the economy, it's an election year. People are really holding tight to their money or whatever their routines. You got to experiment. You have to try things. And I mean, again, there's a spectrum. You don't have to go off the deepest end, but you definitely want to stick your toe in the water every now and then, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
For you, why was it coaching? I mean, you had a broad range of experiences. You had gotten this degree.
Mhm.
You were able to step into a brand new experience in sports sports marketing. What was it that made you say, you know what? I think what I could do really well out here is operate as a coach.
So, first and foremost, I did not want to be a coach. I fought it. So, as I was is exploring things I wanted to do, positive psychology was really interesting to me. And I was actually doing some marketing consulting for a gentleman who was putting together um, a company that was going to help corporations or corporate environments with their culture. And so I got really deep in doing this culture research and how people think about that, and got into this positive psychology rabbit hole, and I was in. I was like, oh, the science of happiness, the science of fulfillment, the science of flourishing. I'm like, what is this magic? And coaching started to come up, like, oh, coaching programs, train as a coach. And I was like, oh, that looks really interesting. That could be kind of cool. And I was like, but no, I'm a marketer. I was so tied to that identity. But then eventually I was like, well, you know what? Took some of my own advice. I said, try it, get certified. If you don't like it, you never have to do it again. You just have this coaching certification. Like, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. So I went and I did the certification program, and there was no turning back. There was just no turning back, but it was calling me. It was like
Right.
kept popping up. It was so interesting to me. I could read about it forever. It was like, oh, this is so cool. And I just remember, even in my career, I love developing my team. I love my one-on-one meetings with my team members, like helping people develop and grow, finding out what people love to do and positioning them for success, or helping someone develop a skill they didn't know they had. Like, to me, that was some of the most amazing work. And I love creating experiences for people. So it fit, but I'll be honest, I didn't think coaching had the gravitas that I wanted, or the status that I wanted. I was wrong. This is the best life ever. This is the best decision I could have made. But I was letting a lot of the rules,
so
right? The rules I
so
spoke
what is
about.
it that you did discover about it that made you realize that this is the best thing for me, this is the best step I could have made?
That I was good at it. That's one.
Mm,
So once I did it and it was like a natural flow, it was not something I had to struggle with or like
right.
really, beat myself up about. It was natural. I wanted to do it. I enjoyed that I could have this connection with the person, and they would walk away from this interaction feeling better about themselves, feeling better about their work. That I played a role in that was incredibly fulfilling to me. And I also there was this hint of like, and you can work for yourself. Like, you don't have
Right.
to, right?
Right.
Because there's a distinction between wanting to be a coach and wanting to have a coaching business. These are not the
Right.
same thing, right?
Right.
But I just loved it. And I realized that it had been a long time since I felt that way about something, that I really
Mm,
loved what I was doing and I wanted more of that.
wow. How are your clients, what I want to ask is, how do your clients respond to finding that type of joy, or what is the challenge, maybe is the better question, to finding that type of joy um, in the
Yeah.
people that you are working with?
Yeah, so I will say, and I will fight anybody who wants to fight, that I have the best clients in the world. I really do. They're
I
amazing.
believe
They're
that.
amazing, amazing people. And when they do have their breakthroughs, or when they do find that they're in flow and they really love what they do,
Mhm.
it's because they let themselves relax a little bit. We're always so tense. We're always looking for the next milestone, the next achievement, the next thing, that you didn't stop to look around and say, but do I actually like where I am right now?
Yeah.
And sometimes, and a lot of my clients are at that point in their career, because I coach mostly like director levels, VP levels, C suite type folks. And they're at the point where like they've been doing their job. The job itself, they know how to do.
Is yeah.
Yeah, they know how to do that. And my philosophy has always been, your life is bigger than work. So your life is a big container. Work occupies a space in that container. and you get to decide how much space it occupies, what role it plays, but you also got to fill out the rest of the container. And that's where it starts to be like, oh, what is work to me? Defining what work and what being successful at work even looks like at that phase of life helps tremendously. Because for some people, it'll be milestones and recognition. They want that, and that's perfectly fine. It's okay to want those things. But for other people, it'll be, I just need a paycheck so this can sustain me and my family so that I can enjoy these other things that I'm doing. It takes all kinds. But you do get to a point where that striving and proving gets worn out. And it's time to rethink this and reframe it and make it something that works for you. That's what I say to people all the time. That's, my tagline for the longest time was, stop thinking about life and work and create a life that works.
Oh, love that.
Because that's what we're here to do. This life needs to work for you. You're always worried about who you're working for, but this life needs to work for you.
So I'm sure you get a lot of clients, I'm assuming, by referral, but those first clients, for anyone who's starting a bit, sales is always the number one challenge for a lot of businesses. And so what does it look like, or what strategies would you offer to someone who is trying to get those first clients and building their name and building their reputation, building a reputation that someone trusts so that they can eventually then deliver the results that will get them the referrals?
Yeah. Well, there's so much, there's so much access now. So there's like a democratization of marketing. So at my core, I'm still a marketer. I can't shake it. It's what I do. It's the lens through which I see the world. There's nothing anybody can do about it. And there's so much democratization in that with social media and different things. What I would say is do something you enjoy, because you're gonna have to do a lot of it. So if you set yourself, you're gonna have to do a lot of it. So find the thing that you actually like doing, because it's hard even to do it when you want to and you like to.
Yeah.
It's impossible if you're not enjoying it. Like, if you don't like social media, don't sell on social media. There's 100 other ways to do it. If I'm a person, I'm an introvert. I know, trust me, it's true. I'm an introvert. People are always like, come on, it's
You
true.
didn't even give me a chance to doubt it. You're like, yep, no, it's true.
I already know. Been here. And I don't like big conferences and like that kind of thing. I do not. Now, if you want me to speak on stage at a conference, I'm perfectly comfortable with that. That's my zone of genius. I'm there. But as far as like the mixing and mingling and small talk, I'm over there by the buffet with the chilled shrimp, like probably talking to this one person, and they're now my BFF for the weekends. Okay, we go together now. Like, this is it. So that's not really going to be a huge part. Like, going to conferences, networking is not going to be a huge part of my strategy, right? But having intimate conversations, asking for introductions, meeting people, having conversations with people like you, yeah, that I love doing. So doing more of that makes it more sustainable. So the very long answer is find the thing, and you don't have to be good at it. Let's get really clear about something. You don't have to be good at something to enjoy it. You'll get good at it eventually.
That's true. Yeah.
Right? If you do it enough, you'll grow and you'll get good at it. But pick something you actually want to do. Now, there's some nuts and bolts to that, right? Your audience needs to be there. Like, who do you serve? You need to make sure that the person that you serve can find you, right? Or that you can find them. You want to make sure that you're speaking to them and they know that you're speaking to them. You're using their language and their tone, meeting them where they are. And if you can intersect that with having a really quality product and doing something you really like, you'll be absolutely magnetic.
Yeah. I love that because, a lot of times when you hear strategies, they're like, well, you got to do this or you have to do that. And you hear that a lot, right? Like, I don't know what to do on social media, or I hate it, right? And to think that you'd have to do this thing a lot that you hate is burdensome enough. And then what happens is you usually don't do it, right? So that's the challenge. So I love that yeah, you can settle into, because we do have a lot of avenues today. Like before, and as a marketer, there used to be a couple of channels that people had, and that was it. And today we do have so much more. where we can, broader spaces where we can operate and let people know
Yeah.
what's happening.
Yeah.
So what's next for Smitten?
Oh, Smitten, my baby. What's next for Smitten is to continue coaching, to continue impacting lives and helping people figure out what's next or even what's now, because what's now can be enough as well. I'd say people all the time, I have people sign up for what I call stay sessions, right? Because not everybody's looking for a job. Some people just want to be good as they are, right where they are. And nobody teaches you how to do that. Nobody teaches you how to be good right here,
And
right?
those are stay sessions.
Those are stay sessions. So we do those, but I think the coaching is central to that. And then I hope to have more conversations with as many people as possible because, again, I love this work and I can talk about it all day long.
And I'm glad you mentioned that that was a specific thing that you did, the stay sessions. What other, please share with the audience, what other services or types of coaching opportunities that you provide?
Yeah, so I provide one-on-one customized coaching for executives or anyone who's in a leadership role. And we spend the first session about 2 hours together, really getting to know each other, understanding what you want, crafting your goals. And then we meet every other week to make sure you're making progress towards that and that it feels good. And guess what? If you decide to change your mind, that's okay too. We'll pivot with that, right? That's okay. So that you can get those reps, get that practice and become the leader you want to be. Not the leader everybody says you have to be, not the thing that's going to get you ahead, but be exactly who you want to be. And here's the kicker on that is you can be yourself and still be successful. And I think it's somewhat, it goes both ways. It's a little sad, but it's also this burst of joy to know that you can learn how to be more of yourself.
Right.
Yeah. I like to think I specialize in that and teaching people how to be more of themselves and being okay with that. Yeah, being you and being successful.
So how can we find you, follow you, and reach you if we are interested in coaching?
Oh, these are all the wonderful questions. So I hang out a lot on LinkedIn. So everybody can find me on LinkedIn. Just look up Smitten, Smitten. Play on, it's like my name and something that I really feel like you should be smitten with your life. You should really be in love with who you are and what you do. So let's get smitten together. And I do think it's interesting that that is actually my name,
But your
right?
name, right?
Yeah,
Yes, Nicole
yeah.
Smith. Yes.
So, so on LinkedIn, you can search for Smitten Nicole Smith because Nicole Smith is, as you might imagine, very popular.
Right.
You can find me on Beyonce's internet at iamsmitten.com because I'm there too.
Right.
And then if you come to the website, you can click the Start Here button and you can sign up for a complimentary 1 hour consult with me. And we will talk about, yeah, it's always free. And we can talk about what coaching might look like for you. And even if at the end of the call we decide that, I'm not the coach for you or, this isn't the time for you, most people walk away with that feeling like they have a better sense of what their next step is. And if
And
you
that
want to
is
also do,
right. No, I was just going to ask you to reemphasize, like, the importance of it. And we talked a little bit about this in the beginning, but the importance of having someone to hold your hand or someone to guide you, or even maybe sometimes just someone to listen, right? With a compassionate ear. And
yeah,
so,
I was going to say that is the crux of it. So, gone are the days, and there's still some coaches that are like this, and I can tell you as much who I'm for as who I'm not. So I'm not a coach for compliance type coach. I'm not going to coach to the metrics of like, oh, this person needs to corrective behavior kind of thing. It's not what we do over here. What I do is a lot of thought partnership so that you can learn to trust yourself, validating your thoughts, showing you new perspectives, expanding what you may think is possible for you, exploring different pathways so that you can get where you're going, feel good about how you got there, and still like yourself when you get there.
right, exactly. Because I've done the corrective coaching. I've had that type of coaching, and I do not like it. It does not resonate with me at all. And I feel like I shut down and then I feel even worse to your point, like
Yes.
at the end of the process. And I think that may be, if it, and I don't know how many folks listening have experienced that, but that can be a very daunting. And then what's the other thing is then you don't look forward to the additional session, like the next session,
No.
right? Because you're just like, oh my God, like I didn't complete X, Y, and Z, and this is what this person is going to say. And again, you start to feel all of the sessions just start to feel more and more burdensome. And so I'm glad you emphasized this, collaborative process, because for a lot of us, I think that's what's needed.
Yeah, well, two things on that. One, it's interesting. I have a client, she enlightened me because she gave me the words for this, so I'll thank her for that. But she said a lot of the coaches she had before were very sterile. Like the interaction was very sterile. And that in our sessions, it's more of a conversation. There's a lot more warmth. Because honestly, I think women, especially Black women, any woman of color, there is not a lot of warm and fuzzy spaces in our work life, sometimes not even in our personal life. There is a lot of strife. Again, there's the proving, there's the striving, there is the hard driving, there is the strength and the resilience. And we need a space where you can take the armor off. I always say you need a safe space where it's okay to be wrong so that you can get things right. You will never get things right if your expectation is you're going to be right all the time. So have a safe space to be wrong, have a safe space to explore, have a safe space to, not all the time, but sometimes vent and and then say, okay, we got it all out. What are we going to do with this? What do you want to do with this? And I feel like a lot of my clients just get a lot out of the validation of like, no, you're not crazy. No, this is really happening. And some of them get a lot out of just the reality check. I definitely tell you the things that other people are not going to tell you.
Thank you for that, Nicole. Thank you for bringing a different perspective to coaching. Thanks for encouraging people to look for opportunities to find these safe spaces, right, where they can discover who they are. We appreciate all of your insights and your words of wisdom, and look forward to staying in touch with you. Thank you so much for coming.
Aw, thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure. This will not be the last time we speak. So.
Not at all. Not at all. Thank you all for listening. And we will be back again next week with another great guest. Take care.
The Business First podcast is hosted and produced by Sonia Aline. Executive producer Ken Johnson. Find the Business First podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcast. On social media on IG at business_first_podcast. Follow the Mean Old Line Media Podcast Network on IG at Mean Old Line Media. Get the Mean Old Line Media app in the App Store or Google Play. The Business First podcast is a Mean Old Line Media production.